Hello, everybody. Good morning. Sorry, I had challenges with my internet, so that's why I'm just joining. Please allow me 2 minutes to set up and share my screen here. All right. So, good morning again. I have news that's not so good, but yeah, I apologize, and it's what it is. So we have to just try and make the best of of the days that lie before us. So the last class wasn't recorded, um, and that was my fault. So I did not take note of the fact that the class was not being recorded. But it's a recording has started for today. So what we'll do is just for the purpose of having that content online, I'm going to just quickly brush through it while I focus on the main you know vision or the main purpose of today's class, right? I'll just try to touch on some of those things that we talked about during the last class. Okay, so did I open the wrong? This has to be the wrong folder. It's not yours. So let's let me get to right. I think this is okay. So last time we talked about conditionals, and I gave an assignment that has to do with something like this. I don't know if you have done the assignment though, but it should be very easy for everybody. And I wanted to give a general feedback. If I've graded your assignment and you saw that you scored less than you should, the most prevalent reason I think I took note of will be the fact that you did not adhere to instructions. Okay. So we said that we should write a function, okay, that prints to the console depending on a certain condition. That was the question, all right? And then I was specific. I did not say give an output. All right. If I said that, then it will be open to interpretation. But I said it should log to the console. All right. And then some persons were doing things that has to do with the DOM, building a web page and stuff like that. That's in the question. All right. So I did not want to award 0.1 for it, but I had to acknowledge your effort and just give you 1. But in case of next time, follow the instruction and give us what we requested for. We are very critical about that because when you start working for clients, right, they would not, okay, thanks. Let me share my screen. Oh, so you see my screen in a few minutes. I think sharing was disabled. So let me try to get through to Shay to enable the sharing. Let's see. That's and I think okay. So I'll send him a message. So yeah, as I was saying, when you start working for clients, they will not appreciate you doing something that is not asked for, unless that client is somebody who doesn't really know what he wants. If you meet a client that knows what they want, I promise you, if they give you a UI to reproduce and you do something more beautiful than what they gave you, I mean, more beautiful, but it deviates from what they give you to do, but it's more beautiful. Anybody who looks at it will say, this site is clearly more beautiful than this. But as long as it deviates from the experience that they have in mind, all right, when they conceive the idea, they're not going to be happy with you. They might not pay you. They might be very, you know, I don't know what word to use. They'll be disappointed, right? And most clients will show their displeasure. Okay. So I appreciate people who try to um, put in more work and, but then what we're trying to do is to imbibe that culture of having you um, follow instructions, resist the urge to overdo, right? Resist that urge. It's there. It happens to every developer, right? When we see the UI that, a UI designer cooks up for us, and we're like, man, who is this UI designer? This thing is too boring. And then there's that temptation to want to, um, that temptation to want to do it your way. Please don't fall for that temptation. All right. That's the um that's the self-control, all right? That's the maturity that is a developer needs to have. All right. Recently I worked on a project and you know, um there were some of these things that came up, all right, but then you have to be mature enough to follow the design. All right. You have to be mature enough to follow the design. Okay. Talking about backend, if you give a specification for an API or an endpoint, follow it. If you have problems with it, you have to go back again and consult the project owner. All right. You consult the project owner. And then so I'm speaking about endpoints, Savage. So you consult the project owner and say, oh, I think that this will be better if we do it like this, if we do it like this. All right. And when they accept and approve, you can now go ahead and implement what you think, is good. All right. What you have discussed with them and what they have approved. All right. So in the case of an assignment, you go come to the group. Don't try to surprise me and say, oh, I'll do something that will blow his mind. If it deviates from the instruction, it's not going to blow my mind, trust me. All right. So you follow the instruction. If you have questions, if there's that creative spirit is coming up and you're like, you want to do something crazy, please come back to the group, the backend group or the front end group, anyone. You puts the message there, would it be okay if we do it like this, we do it like this, and then you get feedback and you know how to proceed. All right. So that is it. I'm going to, so our time is fast spent. I don't know if this sharing stuff has been resolved. If we are going, perhaps I'm going to request for more time for our session. I don't know, but let me reach out again and see. Just give me some time to reach out. All right, guys, please confirm if you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, great. So let's begin the class for today. So we did conditional as the last time, and I'm going to talk about control flow, and this will be loops. Okay. So normally your program is going to run from top to bottom. Okay. If I bring back the code for conditionals, you can see that it will run from the top. First of all, create this function. All right. And this is just a function declaration. It doesn't do anything other than just create this function and store it somewhere. Okay. And at this point, we call the function. Okay. That's when the function does something. So we pass in 4 and 5 because we've specified those as parameters that this function should accept. And then we return the addition of both of them. Okay, so that's what happens here. And when you return the addition, you get 9. All right. And then it runs like this: 9 greater than 10. Is 9 greater than 10? The answer is false. Right. So this would not run, but it will come here and also run this one and say add numbers. This is 9. Is 9 greater than 5? And this passes, and then you see you've already passed test. All right. But if this also failed, if this also returned false, then to come to the last guy the else block, and then it will print out you failed the test. Okay, so if you look at the flow, it runs from top to bottom. That's how the JavaScript program typically runs. Okay, and even when you come to conditionals, it's going to still run from top to bottom. Abi, it only runs the second condition if the first one wasn't fulfilled. All right, if it returned false, that's when it's going to run the second. It's going to run the third. It runs from top to bottom. But then with the control flow constructs, right? You can actually um, create an exception. Okay, so you can loop a certain line of code multiple times. All right, so how do we do that? So we have like 3 of them or 4. I think we have while, we have do while, we have for, and we have is this switch? No, switch is conditional. Okay, so these are the 3 main loops that we have. There are other enhanced form of these guys, all right, that we could use, like for each, when dealing with arrays, stuff like that. Okay, for each, for in, for off, when dealing with arrays and objects. But we get there. For now, I'll just introduce you to this. These are the 3 main types of loop. Okay, so I'm going to start with the while loop, do while loop, and then the for. So for while loop, very simple. While condition, all right, run what you find in the block. All right. If you want to really remember it, change while to if. You see that that's just the difference between the if and the while. All right. But if you used if, it's just a conditional. This block of code will run based on the condition that happens here. But when you change it to while, all right, this block of code will run based on the condition. So if this condition returns true, somebody is drawing on the screen. Please, can you refrain? That might be a mistake, so I would guess. All right, let's just be careful. Okay, so while condition, if it resolves to true, this block of code is going to repeat itself. As long as this condition remains true, this block of code is going to repeat itself. All right. And you have to be careful because you can easily get an infinite loop. All right. A loop that keeps looping. So it keeps looping, and then you know what will happen, because JavaScript is single threaded. Your program is going to be blocked and your browser might crash. Okay, so you want to avoid having infinite loop. So how do you avoid having an infinite loop? So let's say we have let condition equals true. Okay, and then you put condition here. All right, now let's make it more clear. Age equals to 12. So we're saying while age is equal to 12, we want this block of code to repeat itself. You can tell that this is going to be forever true, because age is 12. All right, we need a way to change age at some point so that this condition returns false. Okay, we need a way to change age so that this condition returns false, or else it's going to loop forever. So this is the syntax. Let me write the syntax so that for those who want to copy condition, okay, I'm going to write the syntax. You do this. So run this block, okay. Then I'm going to comment it out. All right. So we have the condition now. The condition is age equals to 12. Now let's say as long as age is less than 15. All right, so let's do something like that. So while age is less than 15, all right, we want to what do we do now? Want to alert So I'm going a bit advanced now. For some persons, you must be above, let's do 18. So let me change this to 18. You must be above 18. Yeah, you must be above 18 to view this site. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll change this to a prompt, and then I'll say enter your age. All right. So what will happen is enter your age is going to give us a prompt. Right. The program reads from top to bottom. I like to do this so that you build that mental model in your head. All right. So let age equals prompt. So the program will read from top. The first line it sees is let age, this line. So it will now read from left to right. All right. You have declared the variable. You have assigned the value to it. All right. And then what's that value you're assigning? This function has to run for you to get the value that we assigned to this. So that's a prompt. It should give us an input on the web page. And then when the user enters a value and clicks on OK, the value entered in that input is going to be returned here. So if the user entered 15, for instance, it's going to return 15. All right, so 15. 15 will be stored in age. And then to keep reading, and we'll come to this while loop. And then we're saying if age is less than 18, and if the user entered 15, this condition will be true. So what to do now, it will alert the user, say you must be above 18 to view this site. All right. In fact, let's also make this a prompt. So while it's telling the user he must be above 18 to view this site, please enter age again. All right. So that we'll just use one stone to kill two birds. So I can use my backticks and then make this double line. I hope it works. All right. So, yeah. Let's see if it works. Okay. So when we put this prompt again, now we want to reassign age equals prompt. So whatever the user enter again at this point is going to be assigned to the age, all right, value. And then after I'm going to do something here, I'll say number, because I know that prompt is going to return a string. So I'm going to convert it to a number before I do my comparison. So let me see if this code will work. Back to the browser and refresh. So let's see. So let's see if all right. Okay. So let's enter 15. You must be above 18 to view this site. Please enter age again. So let's try 19. And once I say, so that should be all. So hold on, there's a problem. All right, let's debug together. Okay. Let's see. What am I missing? So we have this. Oh, age is always 15. Sorry. So I have to make this a prompt. Make this a prompt. Forgot to undo what I did. So enter your age, right? Age. And if we go back and refresh, so these are already an infinite loop, so I have a problem. So I have to close it and restart again. All right, so now we get it right. Enter your age, and then we're going to enter our age 15 and press OK. So you see it tells us you must be above 18 to view the site. Please enter your age again. If I enter 17, it's still going to repeat. All right. This is going to keep looping until I enter the right age, let's say 19, and say OK. It has gone away and given us access to the site. So let me do something here. And I'm going to say if, so you see we're combining both the if and the while, all right? I'll say if age is greater than 18, then let's console.log something. Access granted, right? So let's try again. I'm gonna reload. So let's try page equals to. So let's see where our problem is coming from. Age, yeah. So I'm gonna restart my server. Let's restart the server. Let's see. All right, enter your age. So I'm gonna say 15. And if I press OK, it says you must be above 18. And then I'm gonna do 19 now. I say OK. So if we inspect and go to the console, you see access granted. All right. Now I did that to show you that you can do anything, all right, in place of console.log. So immediately the user enters an age that is above 18, you can decide to render your page, you can decide to take them to another website, stuff like that. You could do anything in between this if block. I'm just trying to show you the building block of your program, all right, with the control flow and with the conditionals, okay? So that's it. So what the while loop does is that as long as this condition remains true, you are going to keep getting this block of code run, okay? So it will repeat 5 to 11, sorry, 5 to 12, all right, as long as this condition is true. But immediately this condition returns false, it's going to stop looping, all right? And the more general example you're going to see with respect to loops is a counter. So let's do a counter, and this is more easier to understand. So we have a counter, sorry, a variable we call counter, and it will be equals 0. Okay. So I'm going to say, as long as counter is less than 18, right, we want to keep logging to the console the value of counter, all right? And then, because we know that if we just run this program like this, we're going to get an infinite loop. What we'll do is I will look for a way to increase the value of counter, all right? So with every iteration, what we want to do is we want to increase the value of counter. So it's okay, counter equals to counter plus 1. So every time this loop runs, the first time it runs, it's going to check, is counter less than 18? This is going to be 0 the first time, right? Is 0 less than 18? That's true. So the condition is true. It's going to run this block of code. So we get 0 printed to the console the first time. And then counter, this variable, will be now be equal to, so we're reassigning counter. What's the value of counter? 0 plus 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. So this will now become 1. So the second time this loop wants to run, it's going to check what's the value of counter. Counter is now 1. Is 1 less than 18? The answer is true. So this loop is going to run. It's going to log that 1 to the console. So what do we have in the console now? In the console, we have 0, and we have 1. All right. And after login, it's going to run this code. Counter, which is now 1 plus 1, is going to be 2. I have to check again. Is 2, which is the current value of counter, less than 18? If the answer is true, the body of the loop, this block of code is going to run. We now get 2, all right? And then it checks again and increases 2 by 1, and then you get 3. So that's going to repeat until fast forward and we get 19. We're going to check, is 19 less than 18? And the answer is false. So this is going to return false. And this block of code is not going to run. So you see, it has been grayed out, all right? It's not going to run, all right? And then that's when the loop will stop. So let's see that happen practically. So we'll start at 0, and then we'll have all our variables in place. And if we check, you see that it runs from 0 to 17, all right? Because in fact, as soon as this guy gets to 18, when he checks, is 18 less than 18? The answer is false, also false. So it will not run, all right? So that's why you don't see 18 printed in the console, all right? But if we wanted 18 printed in the console to run from 0 to 18, what we would have done is simply do less than or equal to, all right? And this is how you write it actually, less than or equal to. So my there's a setting I did on my Visual Studio Code. That's why you're seeing it written like this. But for those of us who are not familiar with maths, this is how it looks like. Less than, equal to, right? So in your editor, it's going to appear, most likely going to appear like this. But in mine, there's a setting I did that makes it look like that, all right? So this is the syntax. So I wish you can see it. Okay. Because I don't want anybody to be left behind. So what I'll do is I'm going to paste it here, and I'm going to zoom in so that you see. So it's going to look like this for you. All right. Less than is the less than symbol. Your left hand, at an angle, it's going to give you less than. Greater than, your right at an angle. So if you want less than or equal to, you write it like this. If you want greater than or equal to, you write it like this. Okay. So that is it. So you see now we have 18 in the console. All right, so I said less than or equal to. Okay, and that is that for the while loop. So you have to take note of it. The while loop looks very simple. All right, but for the while loop, we need an external variable. All right, that's outside this block. Okay, and that is going to be our counter or our condition. Our condition has to be outside, because if your condition is inside, you're most likely going to get an error or an infinite loop, because it doesn't make sense. It has to be outside. Okay, so you can, at your spare time, don't just take every of my statement for it. You can try and put your variable inside, the variable that controls the loop. Put it inside and see if it's going to work for you, and then find out why it doesn't work. And yeah, it's going to help you a lot. Okay, so that is for while loops. I believe that this is like the simplest loop to understand. Okay, while loops are very simple. While the condition, and if the condition is true, your code block is going to keep running. The condition returns false, it's not going to run the code block. Okay, so the next loop we're going to talk about is the do while loop. The do while loop. So for the do while loop, what you're going to do is, you see this part of your while loop, you can cut it and say do here, come to the end of the code and paste what you just cut, and that's the do while loop. All right, so I'm just trying to build that mental construct, how to morph from this. Is you saw that we went from if, right, to while, and then I want to do while. You remove this, change it to do, and then in the end paste this, and here you get do while. So what it does is, or how it works is that it's going to say do this while this condition is true. So what's the difference between the do while and the while loop? The do while is going to run at least once. It must run at least once. But your while loop could, or may not even run at all. Your while loop may not even run at all. But your do while loop is guaranteed to run at least once, because that's what the statement reads now. If you read it well, it says do this block of code. And while this condition remains true, you can repeat the block of code. Okay, so if you want to present something at least once, all right, that's how you do it. So I could say do prompt. Let me see if this will work. Prompt, enter a number. This must happen once. It must work at least once. And while, so I'm going to say number equals to 0. And then at this point, we're going to be reassigning number to whatever is entered in the prompt, all right? So while number is less than or equal to 18, we run this code again. So let's save and try again. I hope it works. So it says enter a number. I'm going to try 19 and say okay. So you see that the loop doesn't run again because this condition returned false. I entered 19. So 19 greater, no less than or equal to 18. Is that true? No, it's false. So this runs false. And so this doesn't run the second time. But you notice that it ran at least once. It ran at least once. That's something you need to take note of. So let's go back again. Let me try. Oh, I just caused an infinite loop. I might have to restart my so that's why it's tricky dealing with this. Guys, let me see if I'm correct. All right, so let's do. So enter a number. I'm going to say 5 and click OK. You see, it will repeat itself because 5, we entered the prompt, return 5, and 5 was assigned to this. And at this line, what we call number will be 5. All right, so is 5 less than or equal to 18? The answer is true. So it will come back to run this line. And this line is still the prompt. So it will prompt again, enter a number. All right, so I can save and let's go and try again. So I'm going to enter another number 10 and it will repeat 12 and it will still repeat 17 and it will still repeat. But immediately we enter 18 or above, it's done running. It should be done. So I triggered an infinite loop, I think so. So if we enter 18, so let me see, number less than or equal to 18. I want to stop the code block, stop execution and rerun again. So this should work fine now. Let me enter 18 and this. Now teaching loops can be annoying because you can get into
It will run because said the number should be less than or equals to 18.
okay, yeah. Thank you. So yeah, that my bad on that. So yeah. So it runs because 18 fulfills this condition, so it's going to be true. Yeah, correct. Okay. So you get the gist. Do is going to run at least once and before it checks the condition. Okay. And if this condition keeps returning true, it will rerun this block of code. I rarely see people using do while loop. And personally, I don't think I've ever used it. This sounds bad, but I don't think I've ever used it. There might be legit situations, right, for using it, right? But I'm not sure I've ever used it, okay? But then it's important that you know that it's there. Because when working with algorithms, some of these things might come in handy, right? And to give you a better solution from other persons are doing. So it's good you know that it's there. Okay. So then the for loop, which is my favorite, and perhaps the favorite of almost every loop I've seen out there, even though there are better ways to write code, the for loop is there. So please, can you mute? Please check your mic if your mic is on. All right, thank you, Abdul. No, yeah, Abdul. All right, so let's do the for loop. The for loop is my most loved loop to teach because it's very straightforward. All right. So let I, for instance. So with the for loop, I do not need an external variable. All right. So let's do let I, I'm going to select counter. All right. And then we'll see as long as counter is less than. Sorry, just got my lights. Let me stop this. All right, I'm back. So let counter equals 0. As long as counter is less than 18, all right, we want to run a loop. And then in the end, we want to increase counter. All right, counter should be equal to counter plus 1. For some of you that have read ahead, I know you're expecting something different here. But there you go. All right, so I'm going to say console.log counter. If I save this code and check the console, oh please, you're done with you, my bro. All right, I think I'm done with you. So let me restart my. Okay, your service loop, man. Okay, so it's 0 to 17, and it's as a result of this code. So let me explain what's happening here. The syntax for the for loop is for, all right, we'll write some things here. The first one is going to be our, I'll call it condition or control variable. Okay, variable declare version. Then you see this guy, you have to have it. This semicolon to express the fact that this is a statement and you're done with it. And then the next thing is going to be condition. And you put a semicolon, and then you put your condition increment, all right, or control variable increment. So yeah, however I want to express that. Yeah. And then here is going to be run this block. So what we're saying is this: for as long as this variable I've declared here is less than 18, run this code and then increase the counter. Notice the flow. 1 is this, 2 is this, 3 is this, and 4 is this. It's not as intuitive, but it's very sweet. That's why I like it. All right. The first thing that runs is this. The second thing that runs is this. The third is this block of code. The last is this guy that you see here. So it's going to say, I'm declaring the counter. Let the counter be equal to 0. But as long as that counter is less than 18, I want you to run this block. All right. And then you would now increment the counter by 1. So this is a reassignment. The short form for this would be counter plus plus. All right. And that's what you will see in most code base, counter plus plus. But what counter plus plus simply means is, all right, increment counter by 1. That's counter plus 1. But that's what it means. Okay. So let me use a simpler way, counter plus plus. Now that I've explained what it means. So we go again. First, declare this variable. Second, check the condition. Is that variable less than 18? And if it is, run this block of code. Then increase the counter and start again. So it will now come back. The next iteration, counter would be 1. So it checks counter, right? Is it less than 18? If it is, it's going to run this block of code and it's going to increase again. And then When it starts again, counter with 2. And that is going to continue happening until counter becomes 18. And when it checks, what's counter? 18. Is counter less than 18? No. Then this block would not run and this will not run anymore. It's just going to terminate at this point. So at any point this resolves to false, your loop is going to terminate. So you see, this guy has been grayed out. That's how the for loop works. It's very, very easy to understand. All right, so yeah, you have it. So we've talked about the while, the do while, and the for loop. Okay. So let's see let's try to look at a situation where these loops might be useful. Say for instance, you have scores. I showed you arrays, right? So these are an array. Scores will have 20, 30, 40, 50, 80, all right, 90. And I'm going to use conditionals and everything I've taught you now. I'm trying to use them here. So I'm going to have 10, I'm going to have 18, I'm going to have 24, I'm going to have 67, so on and so forth. Okay, so let's stop here. So what I want to do now is this. So from the list of scores, let's pretend like we're solving an algorithm problem. So from the list of scores presented to you, all right, print all scores above 50 to the console. Now, with all I've taught you now, it's not left for you because I've taught you all you need to answer this question actually. It's not left for you to now apply logic or critical thinking to solve this problem. So what do you need for this to solve this problem? It says from the list of scores. So I need a list of scores. Where is it? This is it. All right. Print all scores to the console or log all scores above 50. So this is a condition to the console. When you say if a score is above 50, log it to the console. So the question can come in any format, but you need to be able to recognize the particular paradigm that you have to use to solve it, right? So in this case, I know I need a conditional, yeah, all right? And I know I need a list of scores, and I know that I need to print some things to the console, all right? So what I'm going to do now is say for, all right, counter. So normally we'll say you have to declare it, right? So let counter, but then for simplicity, because we know it's a counter, we're going to say let I equals 0. And then as long as I is less than scores dot length, all right? Remember dot length? Is it this class I showed dot length? But dot length is going to give us the length of this array. All right, so I'm going to say as long as I is still less than scores dot length, because I want to look through the entire length of this array. All right, I'm going to say do this console.log scores I. So I told you that to access an item, in an array, you have to use your angular bracket and then the index of that item that you want to access, right? So I say I here, and I'll come back here and increase I plus plus, right? Now, let's just see and see if this works. So you see that we have everything printed for us from the first to the last to 67. Let's analyze what's happening here. We declared a variable called I, and it says its initial value should be 0. And then we said, as long as that variable I is less than scores.length, what's scores.length? Scores.length, so scores.length is this array.length. What's the length of this array? Just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is going to be 10. So as long as cost of length, which is 10, right? So you see, as long as I is less than 10, we're going to print this, all right? So the first time this loops run, let's start from the top. Is I less than 10? No, I is 0 at this point. So 0 less than 10, the answer is yes, that is true. So this block is going to run. And when this block runs, we see scores here, the square brackets. Sorry, I called it angular brackets, square brackets. And then this I, what is I? I is 0 at this point. So this will be 0. All right. This will be 0. So 0 is scores 0 is going to be this. I told you arrays are 0 indexed. All right. So it means the first time this runs, what's going to be logged to the console is going to be score 0, which is 20. So I have 20 here. All right. And then the next time it runs, because after this block of code would be executed, I is going to be incremented by 1. So the next time this loop is going to happen, the next iteration, I is going to be 1 at that time because it has been incremented. So this will now be 1 less than 10. All right. And the answer is true. So this block is going to run again. And then at this point, you know that this should be I, right? So I will translate to 1 the second time. And what is cos 1 is this, because this is 0 and this is 1. All right, we'll have 30 printed. Okay, it's going to run like that until the end. So at the end, which is I, all right, 9. So I will be 9 at that point, and this I will be 9. And it will check, is 9 less than 10? The answer is yes, all right? And then this point is 9. Note that all these 9 are I's, all right? But during execution, they are going to be replaced with their actual value. So cos 9 is going to be this. All right, remember the index is n minus 1, which is the physical position minus 1. The physical position, this is 10 minus 1 is going to be 9. All right, so that's why you get 67. So finally, it's going to be 67. And then the loop attempts to run again and check. So to increment I by 1. So this is going to be 10. And then at this point, is 10 less than 10? The answer is no. All right. And then the loop would not, this body of the loop will not execute. Okay. So let me show you this practically in the browser, like how it's going to appear in the browser. I'm going to show you just for repetition and to ensure that everybody understands. So this is going to be sorry. It's going to be okay. It's going to be So let's go to the browser. Source tab, right? I think, let's see, I'm going to put a debugger here. Should I put it there? Should it be there? Okay, I'm going to put it there. No, I'm going to put it here. Okay. So this line will run before it pauses. So this debugger keyword is just a special syntax that would pause execution at this point. All right. So what happens is we'll have this run. So I equal to 0 for a start. And as long as I is less than scores the length, right? So as long as less than scores the length, this is going to run. So for this to run, right? For this to run, this has to be true, and this will run. And when it gets to this line, it will print scores and the index of scores to the console. And at this point, it will pause before it increments. It's going to pause here. All right, so let's see it happen. So you see, I'll refresh. You see that execution has paused here, but there's something I want you to take note of. All right. So note that at this point, I is what? I is 0. All right. Just put your eyes here. I is 0. All right. What is printed to the console? 20. You come back here. 20 is index 0. If I press play, I is 1. What's index scores index 1 is going to be 30. Let's check what's printed in the console, 30. We'll come back to here and play. I is what at this point? 2. What's index 2? 40. What is printed in the console according to our code? So this will be 2, right? Scores 2 is going to be 40. And let's check our console. 40 printed. If you press play again, so at every iteration, all right, you're going to see that it's been incremented. I is now 3, all right. What's index 3? That should be 50. That's n minus 1. So that's 50. If you check here, this 3, right, and 50. You check back to the console, 50 has been printed. If I play, you're going to see that it keeps doing what it does. All right, this is 7. So let's check what's there. Index 7 should be what? All right, what's at the physical location of, so this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 18. Check the console, 18 is what's printed. All right, if you play, okay, it keeps printing this 8. All right, at 10, that's when the loop is going to stop. So you see the loop has stopped. Execution has finished. We come back, you see that we have all the items printed out in the console. Okay. So what I did now is not a requirement for you to understand what's happening. It's just me trying to explain, the step-by-step process of what's happening there. Okay. Then we are not done with the question. The question says we should print only the scores that are above 50. So what we'll now do is we'll wrap this in an if statement. So we'll say if the score for that particular index is greater than 50, that's when we want to log it to the console. All right, if you check now, it has been reduced to only the scores that are above 50. Okay, so that's how programming works. You have different concepts that we're going to present to you. Then you have to use critical thinking, put them together to solve problems. All right, and that's what you'll be employed for. Okay, so you see here, I'm making use of both conditionals and control flow. All right, and also variable declaration is here. All right, and comparison operation is happening here. Okay, I less than, all right. Variable reassignment or increment is happening here. You see, these are different constructs, but then they'll be brought together to solve a problem. Arrays happening here. Okay, that's how programming, works. Okay, so we could this question can be further twisted into several forms, and you could be asked to print the scores that are divisible by 2. All right, and we'll say if scores modulo 2 is equal to 0, print it. So I'm only going to print the guys that are divisible by 2. So if you check everything that's been printed here, they are all divisible by 2. And these are not all the elements of the, so you see the ones that have 7 attached to them, like 67 is not printed because this is not divisible by 2. Right? To get a whole number, that's what I mean by, when you divide it by 2, you don't have any remainder, right? So modulo is that operator. Yeah, so it's like division, but in this case, it will return the remainder of the division. So if you use modulo, you are saying whatever scores I represents, which the first time is going to be 20, you want to use the modulo operator on it, divided by 2, and then it's going to return 0 because there's no remainder from that operation. So 0 equal to 0 is true, so it's going to print 20. We go back. So let's fast forward to when we have 67, and that time score is going to be 9, and it's going to resolve to 67, and 67 divided by 2 will give you 33 point something. All right, so that point is a remainder, and that's what is going to be, I think it's 0.5. So Am I correct? Yeah. I
Sorry,
think
what
so.
do you press to get that equal sign?
Okay, the equal sign, I did triple equals 3 times. So let me put in the console. This is 1, 2, 3. So because of what I have installed, it's going to join them together to give you that long equals. But it's equals 3 times. Okay. So this is going to be 0.5. 0.5 equals to 0. No. And that's why it's not going to print, because this is not going to run, because this result will false. Okay. So everything I've explained, I tried my best to make it as simple as possible. If you find yourself being confused by any of them, it's not unusual. Like, enjoy it, because it is the process. You must be confused at some point. All right. You must be confused at some point. So just test it, watch the video or rewatch that aspect, right, that you're confused by. And if you have questions, my DM is open for questions, or you just go directly to the group and paste it there. Maybe somebody, before I had the time to look at it, somebody might have even answered your question. All right. So it's very, 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 very usual that you might be confused, all right, by some of these things, no matter how simplistic the explanation is. Okay, because it's a new concept to some of us. All right, so I think that this is where we'll stop for today.
Sorry, just a quick question. How did you connect like the console to your VS Code? I don't know, like for you to see your results in. I don't know how you connected it.
The console to my VS Code.
Yeah, like when you run your code on VS Code, I think you check it on a web browser or something to see the results. Like, how did you do the connection?
All right, so I just realized that there's no class after this, so we can take some time to attend to questions, right? So yeah, how do I connect it to my console to see? So let me just take time to explain that. So JavaScript in the browser does not run in isolation, all right? JavaScript in the browser has to run with an HTML file, or you have to write the code directly in the console. So what I would have done is to copy this code, save, and then go to the console and just paste it. Let me just comment everything out so that there's nothing in the console. All right, so I'll just paste the code here and press enter, and it will run. All right, so you can write code directly in the console. That's one way. All right. Another way to go about it is to go to the sources tab, and then until, let's see what I can do. I'm going to go to workspace. All right, I'm going to add a folder that I have in my laptop. So let me just go to downloads and create a folder. I'll call it test. And I'm going to add that folder. Right. Why is it not added? Okay, I think it's added, but let's do something. Let's create a file in the folder. I'll create a file in the folder. So there might be a problem that is not allowing the folder to be created.
Just to be sure, share is the VS Code you are using.
Yeah, I'm just showing you how to write on your console directly. But let's do the VS Code first, okay? Since there's something funny happening there. What you do is I'm gonna stop my live server. So what you do is this. You open your VS Code. When you open your VS Code, most likely this is the screen you would see, the welcome screen. Go to File. If you are using Windows, I'm not so sure how this will appear, but I'm sure that you will have this icon here, this icon that says Explorer. So you can click on it and then click on Open Folder. So you open folder and go to your folder. Mine is in downloads. It's called test. I'm going to open it. And here you can write, you create an index.html file, all right? And then we're going to write the basic HTML syntax and write the script tag. Then you connect this script tag to your external script. In this case, I'm going to say ./app.js, right, and save. And you have to create that file, app.js. So now if I write anything in app.js, all right, it's going to be connected to this page, and then I can see it in the console when I console log. So if I say console log, hey, from app.js, save. To view it, I have to view this website. So this is the website I will open. So I can right click on it and say, I think from here, right click on it and say open with live server. Now you have to have live server installed. All right, live server. So this is what you're looking for, the extension live server you're looking for. You install it in VS Code. All right, and then you come back here to your file explorer, right click and say open with live server. When you open this file, all right, right click and say inspect and go to console, and you'll be seeing your results here. So everything you do in this JS file now is associated with this HTML file, and you can see it in the console as long as you are logged into the console. All right, so that's how it's connected, basically. Okay, if you are a backend folk, you're just learning backend as your first entry into software development, this might look very strange to you, but I believe that for the front end guys, they know what's happening. Yeah, all right. You're simply just connecting JavaScript to HTML and logging some outputs to the console. Very easy. When we get to Node.js, we would not have to follow this long process. We'll be able to write our codes directly in the terminal. We'll be able to do something like this. Just say node 2 plus 2. Sorry. Just say node, you get into the node environment and you say 2 plus 2. And you get your answer 4 directly. All right. And you can do a lot of things. Just write your JavaScript directly when we get to node. But for now, we're going to do it the naive way. So, yeah. Yeah, we're going to write it to Control C again. And I've exited. Should have exited. Okay. Yeah. All right, so that's it. If we're doing Node, it will be just easy. Just type Node on you have Node installed, type Node on your terminal, you get into the Node REPL, and you can start writing your code. But for web development, right, you have to follow this pattern to get it connected. Okay. So having said that, let's just take more questions. I think we'll have the time today. So take more questions if I take my leave.
Sorry, sir, something unrelated. What theme or extension are you using your VS Code to make that your less than or equal to appear that way?
I've forgotten. Man.
Okay.
So it's
Looks
a,
cool, sure.
I think it's a combination of some things, right? I'll set my font to something monospace like that, and I think I followed the video. I saw somebody did it, and then I followed his lead. And these are not essential, so I don't store them in my head sincerely because I
All right,
just gave up.
I'll check that on YouTube, whatever.
Yeah, so I would take the pain to look for it, all right, and then I'll send it to you guys on the group. Yeah, let's just take other questions. No questions on chat.
Sorry, what was the shortcut used to create that HTML structure? And VS Code.
You said what?
There's a shortcut you use to create that HTML structure.
Sorry, come again. Shortcut to
Use a shortcut to create HTML structure.
oh, that's Emmet. Go to I don't know if it ships by default with VS Code these days, but it is Emmet, EMMET.
Okay.
I think it should come by default with VS Code. But you can install Emmet. Obviously, I don't have it installed.
Apostrophe and enter. The structure will come.
Yeah, so just write. So if you come here now and start, let's assume you start writing HTML, it will just come out and you can use any of the options. Right? I think it comes now with VS Code by default.
Sorry, sir. I think it's shift 1, that exclamation mark, then press enter to come out.
Shift 1.
1, yeah, on my own.
Exclamation mark.
Yeah.
You don't need. Sorry.
On the HTML page, not the JavaScript.
Yeah, on the HTML page, you meant HTML page.
Okay, so that would be correct, yeah. Shift 1, yeah. I didn't know that was what you were asking.
On the HTML page, on the index of the HTML page, use the Shift 1.
I think he meant on the
page
HTML
on HTML.
file you created inside your test
On
folder.
the Visual Base Code, yes. You're on the JavaScript file. Just open the HTML file, yeah. Shift 1 will give you the boilerplate for the HTML. That's shift exclamation mark.
Okay. I'm actually confused, but I hope the person who asked the question understands what we're saying.
As if you want to get
Yes,
the
yes, I
boilerplate,
do.
the HTML
Yes, I
boilerplate,
do.
yeah. Yes, you just press Shift 1. That means exclamation. It will prompt you to select the boilerplate for the HTML.
All right. So other questions? So give me feedback on the class. Like, was it clear enough?
Is it just me? You were just breaking up just now.
So what did you say?
Oh, okay, don't worry. You were breaking up at the point, so but I think it's clear now.
All right, great. Okay. So I'm going to do something because we are still trying to scratch the surface of JavaScript at this point, right? So it will get more difficult as we go. So what I've resolved to do is that I'll be posting some shorts, all right, online to briefly explain specific concepts. So in less than 1 minute, I'm going to try to explain a concept so that if you ever need to go back and just learn that concept, you don't have to watch the entire video to do that. Okay? So I'll post a link to my channel and you can go there and get the shorts from there. All right. So that's what I'll be doing. I don't have the motivation to create these videos because they usually take time to edit and post and all the stuff. But I think that I'll just use this opportunity as a motivation to do that. All right. So yeah, if there are no more questions, let's talk about functions before we go. Let's talk about functions for we go. But then let's talk about functions for we go. So function, yeah. So function. And it told us during the last class that functions are just simple constructs. It's a simple construct that enables us to repeat a block of code. All right. I hope my JavaScript is still. Let me test if this still works. Console.log. Okay. So they help us repeat a block of code. So I could say function repeat this console.log. Okay. So as long as I call this function as many times as I call this function, all right, we're going to get A printed to the console. So we check for A. All right. And they're all coming from line 3. So this is very important because there are some small details that we miss, and this will add up to create the difference between you and a more competent developer. All right. There are very little things, but the fact that you miss them, they will aggregate to become something significant that will tell the difference between you and another developer. So if you look at this console, right, very subtle that you might miss it. Look at the console, you see app.js line 3. And if you look at this is happening at line 6. This is happening at line 7. This is happening at line 8. But the console is telling us that what is actually happening is at line 3. And if you go back, you see that indeed the console.log statement is written where? Here at line 3. Are you getting the gist now? So this is simply repeating what is happening here. That's what this function is doing. So we go back to how I defined what a function is. It simply repeats a block of code. It's a way that we can repeat a particular block of code. So if you call the function, it is actually running this line 3. Anytime you call the function, it's actually running this line 3. Anytime you call it, this is the line that is being run. If we change this to return, for instance, 2 plus 2, we know we'll have 4 printed. All right. Let's see. What have I done wrong? Return. Okay, yeah. So since it's been returned, we'll have to console.
You've not console
the log. Right. So we're not logging to the console, right? So the console the log, the return statement, right? So now we'll have them logged in the console 444. But if we check now, this is 6, 7, and 8. 6, 7, and 8. So you see that it has changed, right? What line is being logged to the console? It is line 6, and the next time it is line 7, and the next time is line 8. Now this seems like what is guy talking about, but when you start debugging, you would see the effect of what I'm doing right now. Like you'll be more quicker and smarter at debugging than a regular developer, right? When you've built your knowledge of JavaScript and you're now debugging, you see how these things will come into play. All right. So take note of how JavaScript executes. It's very important. There's learning about JavaScript as a language, and there is actually taking time to understand how this language executes. All right. Many times you hear about the stack, JavaScript heap. Those things sound like abstract concept, but they are not. You can access the JavaScript heap with Node. In fact, you can even access it with your browser, but you have to do some configurations. You can see the stack. It's very easy. The last time I did debugger, sorry, debugger, you saw how execution paused at some point. So debugger, sorry, I've already returned and I'm saying debugger. I have to do it before the return statement. So you saw how execution paused, and if you check here, you see stack. This is the call stack. There is repeat this. That's the name of our function. And that is the current function being executed. All right. So I'm not actually teaching you at this point. So you're not trying to wrap your head around what I'm saying. I'm trying to draw your attention to details. All right. So that you'll be that developer that know how to catch details and see what's happening within your program. Okay. So that you're not just, it's not just vibe and, inshallah, as they used to say it, that, oh, I wrote it, return 2 + 2 and it worked. But what is happening behind the scene? When you start debugging, which is one quality of a good software developer, they can debug really fast. So what somebody will debug for a whole day, you can just step in and look at it and say, oh, this is where the problem is coming from, even though it's not obvious. But because you've developed that skill, all right, to look for details, all right, and ask questions, you will be a better developer. So back to the concept of functions. Now you can see, obviously, that functions could either return a value or not. All right, and all this while we've been using functions. Okay, so you see this guy called console.log. This is a function. How do you know it's a function? It's functions that you call like this. When you use brackets on anything, you are telling the program that this stuff log is a function. That's why I'm using these two brackets to call it. These are your call functions, right? This console.log function receives a value and then pass that value to the console. That's what it does. All right, so it's a function. But this function does not return anything, so it returns undefined. If you go back to your console now, refresh, all right, you see that it is simply logging to the console, right? But now let's try something. I'll come here to the console and say console.log and watch now. If I press enter, what do you see here? Undefined. It logs for to the console, quite all right, but it returns undefined. All right. I'm trying to tell you that when a function does not return anything, the return value of it is undefined. When a function doesn't return anything, the return value is undefined. So I'm going to prove it one more time to you and refresh. Since it's coming from our code, you won't see undefined return. Okay, but I want to make it very apparent. So I'm going to say const return value equals repeat this. All right, the call to repeat this. Now this function doesn't return anything. If it returns something, this function call is going to resolve to what it returns. But in this case, since we are not explicitly writing the return keyword for something like 2 + 2, which should have been 4, this would have resolved to 4 because that's what is being returned from this function call. All right. But since that's not the case, we're not returning anything. All we're going to expect is undefined. If I console.log return value, you're going to see undefined in the console. All right. So when you have a function without the return keyword, that function is going to return undefined. So every function returns something. All right. But you can either explicitly tell it what to return, or it would implicitly return undefined. All right. So it's very important that we know that. All right. So if I say return 2 + 2, this is simply returning 2 + 2. All right. So if I call that function, it returns 2 plus 2, but that 2 plus 2 is lost because we're not storing it anywhere. All right. So this is how I thought about it yesterday when I was thinking of how to explain this concept. So when you have a cup full of water, all right, and you pour that water out, the water is going to either spill on the floor and get wasted, or you can decide to put a bucket, a container, right, beneath it. And when you pour the water out, it gets into that container. So it's stored in that container. That's how variables are. Or values are in JavaScript. If I just do 2 plus 2 here, 2 plus 2 here, this is a value. It's like pouring it just anywhere. Like I'm just wasting it. I'm not storing it inside any container. And you know, variables are containers for value, right? So because I want to have access to this guy, I don't want it to just be wasted or garbage collected. I don't want it to just waste, right? What I'll do is I'll store it in a variable because I want to use it. Well, if you don't want to use it, fine. This line will run. It actually runs. So let me show you debugger. And let's see debugger. Let me just pause at that point and let's try that. Let's see. So if I refresh, okay, I don't think there's actually no way that I can show you that. But this line actually runs, okay? I don't think I can capture it in the scope. Will it be captured in the? I don't think it will. It's not captured anywhere, all right? It has to be a variable first. So it is just wasted like that. So because we want to have use of this in the future, that's why we store it in variables. So I say let result, for instance, equals 2. Now I've created a variable for it and see result here. All right, value unavailable at this first time. When I play, that's after line 2 has run, the value should have been updated to 4. So you see that this line 3 has to run first, and I pause at line 4. The C result is 4. So I'm going to explain all these things in a separate class. Just trying to tell you that we store values in variables so that we're able to use them. Back to functions. You see this function call right now, right? It's actually returning 4. But this 4 is not stored anywhere. All right, it's not stored anywhere. If I pause this function here, if I pause this function here at this point, let me do at this point. No. At what point should I pause? Should I pause? Should I pause? Should I pause? I still will not be able to show you because it just gets wasted. So since this is returning 4, this is going to return 4. And 4 is not being stored anywhere, so it just wastes like that. All right. So in order to have access to it, I'll just say store what is returned in this new variable called result. And then I can use the return value in this variable, which is 4. By console.log result, we can see that result is 4 in the console. All right. 4. Okay. So in this case, we had to do console.log. So I explained things in detail, like when I perceive that somebody is confused. So somebody might have been asking, why did we have to wrap this guy in a console.log? It's because this is a value being returned, and we cannot really have access to it unless we trap it in some way. So we can decide to log it directly in the console, or we can decide to store it in a variable and then log that variable to the console. It's still the same thing, all right? We're just passing values around, okay? So functions could either return values or not, right? And they could also accept arguments or not, all right? So like I said the last time, let me just spend much time here. The number of values you define or you declare here, all right, are going to be the number of values that you can pass into the function during its call. So I said num1, that means I can pass a value for num1 and pass a value for num2. I could use them here. Num1, num2. So whatever you pass into num1 gets stored here. Whatever you pass into num2 gets stored here. They're added together and they are returned. The return value is what to be, what to be replaced, all right, what this will be replaced with. So in this case, it's going to be 1 plus 2, and this will be 3. And 3 is stored in result, and result is printed to the console. So we expect 3 in the console. So 1 plus 2, sorry, I said num1 plus num1 instead of num2. And we expect 3 to be printed in the console. All right, it's as simple as that. Okay. Let's see. So when we get to core JavaScript concepts, I think that's going to start in the second month of this course. I would explain to you what happens in this place. All right. How you can see the process involved in variable creation from the starting to the end of it. I'm going to explain everything in this. But before then, I can send you a link where you can read up on it. All right. And get prepared for that. So if you have questions, please ask. I think I've come to the end of the class. If you have questions, you can ask.
I wanted to ask, you said the core JavaScript starts next. I thought the core JavaScript was this class.
This is basic JavaScript.
Oh, really? Because I saw JS102 on the thing, and according to the what do you call it? According to the timetable, it's supposed to be for month 1.
Oh no, this must be a mistake. I have the schedule here. All right, I don't want to open it, but I have the schedule there. I think it should be from month 2, is it?
Yeah, because
I
month
might
is
be
supposed
wrong.
to do
So it's
JS.
supposed to be week. Oh, I think it's week 3 and 4. I might be the one in the wrong. It's supposed to be 3 and 4. All right. So what will happen is that from our next class, from Thursday, I hope I'm available on Thursday. I will be available. So from Thursday, we'll start talking about the core concept. So what I'm going to explain to you, you might have heard that everything in JavaScript is an object. I'll explain what it means. I'll explain how you can use functions to create objects. I'll explain how the global object works and some of all those core aspects of JavaScript. I'll start explaining them on Thursday. So thank you. Thank God I mentioned it. I brought it to my attention. I was thinking that the core JavaScript will start next month. Okay. So on Thursday, we'll start digging deep into these things. All right. If you are yet to view the what's it called now? The links, those articles I shared on the group, please go and view them for your own benefit. All right. And if you are kind enough, you can leave a like or a comment just to promote the article. Okay. It was written by me actually. All right. So thank you guys. If there are no more questions, I think I'll see you in the next class on Thursday.
Sorry, sir, before you go, which link are you talking about, please?
I shared them on the backend channel.
Okay, on Slack.
Mm.
Okay, I'll check it out. Thank you.
Maybe I'll look for it and pin it.
Yeah, that will help.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a nice day ahead.